One perennial debate I have with founders and even my co-founders in my venture is, should we raise funding? Raising funds is almost synonymous to starting up, and I think it has become all the more so after Shark Tank. Everyone now understands what is funding, what is equity, what is raising external capital. But do we really understand why and when we should raise this funding? Should you be raising funding at all? That's a question I think founders need to answer early in their business. And that question could be reconsidered in the future. Raising funds is often seen as the missing piece or a validation when creating a business. And I can see the charm of someone coming and valuing our business at say $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, $100 million and giving us a lot of money to run it. It sounds great. But hey, what really is venture capital and what are its downsides? Or put another way, as a founder, should you be raising funds at all? Now, I have raised funds. I have raised what you could call institutional funds. I have raised from angel investors. And then I have created two more ventures now where I have very consciously and with a lot of pain decided to not raise any money. So let me run you through the dilemma that I have gone through, the mistakes that I have made, and maybe that will help you figure if you should raise funds or stay bootstrapped. But on this topic, if you want a quick answer, right? We are in the world of quick tweets instead of a long blog post. So my friend Praveen, who goes by the handle Being Practical on Twitter, had a fantastic tweet just the other day as I was preparing this video. It says, if your aim is to build a startup that does 10 crore in annual revenue in India, try to build it in a way by raising small capital from angel/friends or just say bootstrapped. Don't play the venture capital game, it is just not worth it. You will be stuck forever. And then he follows up by saying, and there is nothing wrong in building a 10 crore revenue business. Many funded startups don't reach that mark. And I must add, at a 10 crore revenue business, you will likely create great wealth for yourself. And when I often think about what is it that I want in life with respect to wealth and with respect to personal wealth, I think all I want is a chotu in office who will go and make adrak wali chai for me and go and replace the water in my bottle in the car every day. That's pretty much it. In India, you are going to enjoy the same luxuries that any of your multimillionaire friends do if you have this much with you. You will have the same laptop, you have the same computer, you have the same internet, you have the same roads, more or less you will have the same cars. What else could you ask for? Building a large business is often not about the wealth you will create for yourself. It is about a mission. It's about seeing the world in a certain way. Think about, say, the quick commerce applications. Hasn't it changed consumer behavior? Hasn't it changed our world? Hasn't it created millions of jobs? That is the joy in creating a startup. I don't know if the incremental wealth after reaching a certain point helps the founder. So unless you are really driven by a desire to create something really large and change the world, I don't know if you should be raising funds and trying to make a good business really bad and miserable by having venture capitals sitting on your cap table. Venture capital or VC is a way to get risk capital in your business, which you can deploy to take big risks which otherwise you can't fund with your own money or a bank won't finance your business for in a unsecured manner. If you think about it, a friend of mine who runs headphonezone.in, Raghav, he has raised capital for his business by going to a bank and taking a loan. And when he has taken this loan, he tells me that, hey, I need to give a personal guarantee for this loan as the director of the company. Otherwise, this loan will not exist for my company. A debt which comes from a bank or an institution and has an interest payment attached to it is great for a business like Headphone Zone, who needs inventory, who needs to keep stock. But if you are someone, say, creating the next Zomato or Blinkit or Zepto, you need to take a risk, you need to put something out there, create a habit, and maybe someday it will become a profitable business. That's the kind of bet which a venture capital can take. I think the choice is pretty binary in my mind. If you are going out there and buying rocket fuel, you better have the intentions of creating a rocket. I have seen many startups raise funds and get into the rocket building race where they could have been great 10 CR businesses without any venture capital and could have made good wealth for themselves. And I would count myself in that list. And let me tell you how it went for me. So when I started Price Baba, I was pretty determined to change the way retail works in India. And we had this whole hypothesis on how offline retail should be, how online product research should be. And in my mind, it could have been a great business and it had to be a large business. And I was clear from day one that we will not chase revenues, but we will chase a certain consumer behavior. And the hypothesis was that people are researching online but buying offline. And then, of course, the market changed, e commerce picked up. So we thought, okay, this will be research online, buy wherever you like. And we did well, organically reaching 5 million users a month over there. But the business model of making money failed because, honestly, oh God, I've written a long blog post on it and let's forget what happened there. But at that point, when that hypothesis failed and I already had some venture capital raised, I should have known that this is not happening. I should have quit. Instead, I spent 3 more years trying to pivot this into a different business, wherein this could have been a very good 10 CR business had I just accepted that reality. And by the end of it, I was burnt out. My angels and VCs pretty much wrote me off. And when Price Baba was acquired, I did manage to return some capital to my investors. Some made slight profit, some made a loss. And net, I think the people who invested in this business don't care about what happened to the business, but I had this immense guilt in my mind that I have not returned enough capital. They would, of course, think that, hey, the business has been sold, he has probably made a lot of money for himself, but we are getting pennies on the dollar. So I have probably lost some relationships. I have, in theory, sold a business which should have been a good 10 CR business, but in the whole venture capital race, neither did I pay myself a salary for 7 years, neither did I make any money when I sold it. And that became such a big burnout that it's been difficult to get back in the race and build a new startup since then. And of course, let's take this as a learning. You may end up saying that, okay, you took the venture capital risk, you failed, and you probably should have declared failure sooner. And I have to mention this to you, that the moment you decide to put rocket fuel inside, you better have all intentions of executing as a rocket or call it quits. Else, you will neither go to the orbit, neither will you create a supercar, you will crash in the ground. Ben Horowitz has a great blog post called Nobody Cares. And I have read this probably 100 times when I was running Price Baba. There is so much content out there about persevering and the whole FedEx story of the guy going to Vegas, gambling and getting enough money to save his company. There is so much romanticism in being a startup, in struggling as an entrepreneur. I think we often forget that there is a huge survivorship bias when it comes to this whole startup game. I think somewhere we could persist with Price Baba for such a long time because we really believed in the mission of empowering local retail. And later on, we really loved the culture we had built and the team we had, which allowed us to go a little more. And honestly, yes, I admit it's a shame that we could not pivot into a more successful business. But the challenge was that we took some rocket fuel and then we had to keep making decisions which will get us more rocket fuel. Our pivot should have been to a SaaS or any other business which was very revenue driven, and we should have exited the venture capital game much sooner, because that is what the market was telling us about our business. It was a decent media business. We could have built things on the back of it. And hey, the company I sold my company to, 91 Mobiles, does exactly that, and they do really well. When the whole housing.com fiasco happened, I read somewhere in an article that raising money was like riding a tiger. And once you are riding a tiger, you really can't get off a tiger because the tiger will eat you. But here is the thing. If you bootstrap your business into a successful 10 CR business, 2 CR business, 5 CR business, because that is the visibility you have today, it is not to say that tomorrow you cannot find a vision which will go to a 100 CR or 500 CR version of this business, and you could raise capital for that new vision at that point. So when you start, if you are clear that, hey, I'm chasing 1,000 crore revenue, by all means, sure, do all the work to get venture capital in. But if you have visibility today to go to a 5 or 10 CR kind of a business, as our friend Praveen says, sure, play for that, achieve that, and then if you have a higher vision which needs venture funding, go for it. But there are really good case studies of companies who started as a small company, maybe raised some capital, but did the hard work for 10 years to become a mid-sized company and did a SME IPO. And that market has really opened up in India now. You don't need to always think venture capital and go through that whole dance and drama of raising multiple rounds of funding. We have seen enough businesses in India get a lot of rocket fuel during COVID, and now all of them are crashing one after the other because there is honestly indigestion happening now. So at the end, all I would say is I'm not anti VC, but bootstrapping gives you an option and a path to create a good business and lifestyle for yourself. But if you are raising venture money, be very sure on what your end game is and how do you intend to pay back these investors and give them the 100x returns that they are looking for.